Well, most doctors who work in actual hospitals and medical institutions have to show up to the office. We know that employees are more productive and more efficient when they are working in an in-office environment.
All right, let's talk about what just went down on live television, because honestly, this might go down as one of the biggest media flops of the year. Michael Strahan, former NFL star turned Good Morning America host, thought he was about to score a political touchdown. He suited up. He came in with his playbook. Cue the dramatic entrance music. Then he went head-to-head with Karoline Leavitt, President Trump's razor-sharp press secretary. Spoiler alert, it did not go the way he thought. Now, Strahan may have flattened quarterbacks back in his football days, but in this interview he got verbally steamrolled, pancaked, and punted into next week. Karoline Leavitt didn't just survive the ambush. She reversed it, weaponized it, and made him look like a rookie playing in the wrong league. And the best part, she barely even raised her voice. Oh, what exactly happened here? How did Strahan's gotcha moment turn into his gotcha moment? Let's break it down. It all started with a question Strahan probably thought would corner her. He brought up President Trump's plan to reduce the federal workforce by offering a massive buyout to 2 million government employees.
We want to start with the administration's offer to buy with a mass buyout to federal employees out there. How many do you hope will take it, and by what percentage does the president want to downsize the federal workforce?
If you're a mainstream media host, you assume this makes the administration look cold and heartless. You think it screams anti-worker, authoritarian, or some other scary buzzword. But Karoline Leavitt, she was ready. She didn't dodge. She didn't waffle. She leaned right in and laid it out. This wasn't some mass firing spree. It was a voluntary buyout. That's right, voluntary, generous even. If people wanted out, they'd get 8 months of paid leave to walk away. Not a pink slip, not a forced exit, a choice. And why? Because, as she pointed out, only 6% of federal employees in Washington, D.C. are actually showing up to the office.
This is another promise made and kept by President Trump. He told the American people on the campaign trail that he was going to make our federal government more efficient and productive. And it is a fact that only 6% of the federal workforce here in Washington, D.C. actually shows up to the office.
Let that sink in. You're paying for the lights, the heat, the marble floors, the massive federal buildings downtown, while 94% of those workers are logging in from their living room couches, sipping coffee in their pajamas, pretending that a morning Zoom call counts as public service. That Leavitt called it out for what it is: taxpayer-funded laziness. And Strahan, he didn't know where to look. She reminded everyone that America's real workers, the teachers, the cops, the nurses, show up every single day. They don't get to Zoom their duties. They're not cashing a paycheck for staying home. So why should unaccountable federal bureaucrats,
middle-class Americans, our teachers, our nurses, our law enforcement officers who keep this economy working, show up to the office every single day, and President Trump expects that federal employees do the same?
Here's where Strahan tried to come back. You could see the wheels turning. He was like, Okay, but what about doctors and scientists?
Is there any concern that we risk losing people with years of experience like doctors and let's say scientists?
Like that was supposed to be the trap. But come on, doctors working from home. Karoline Leavitt didn't even blink. She said what we were all thinking. You can't diagnose a patient over FaceTime. You can't run lab experiments from your kitchen counter. That's not science. That's sitcom science.
Well, most doctors who work in actual hospitals and medical institutions have to show up to the office. We know that employees are more productive and more efficient when they are working in an in-office environment.
Her response was brutal in the best way. This wasn't cruelty, it was reality. The administration was simply saying, if we're paying you with tax dollars, we expect you to actually show up and do your job. Shocking, right?
His order, as presented in that memo last night, directs federal agencies to come up with a return-to-work policy for their agencies. And if federal bureaucrats in this city don't like that, well, guess what? They can resign from their positions, and this administration is offering them 8 months of pay. They will be paid through September just to simply resign from their positions. If 5 to 10% of the federal workforce resigns, it will save taxpayers tens of billions of dollars. And so So look, we want people to return to work. We have beautiful federal office buildings here in Washington, D.C. that American taxpayers are paying for. They should be used. That's what the American people deserve.
And just when Strahan was still wobbling, he threw one more Hail Mary. He brought up federal assistance programs, hinting that the Trump administration was freezing help for the vulnerable, the underserved, the communities who need it most. Classic emotional appeal, the how dare you angle.
Let's get to the funding part. The White House putting a freeze on federal assistance program. The federal judges put the freeze temporarily on hold, saying the government itself doesn't have the full scope of the programs that are going to be impacted. So what's your response to that?
But Leavitt, she torched that narrative. She made it crystal clear this wasn't some random budget slashing spree. It was a review, a strategic pause to ask one basic question. Is this money doing anything useful?
Well, as I addressed in my first press briefing yesterday, this is a temporary pause on federal assistance and grants so that the Office of Management and Budget here in the Executive Office of the President can review all federal assistance that is going out the door.
This wasn't about cutting off grandma's Medicare or denying food stamps. Essential programs, Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare, SNAP, were untouched. Business as usual. What they were pausing was the outrageous waste.
And as I repeatedly stated yesterday, individual assistance such as Medicare payments, Social Security benefits, welfare, food stamps, and Medicaid assistance will not be impacted by this federal pause. So the American people should not worry. If they're receiving individual assistance from the federal government, they will continue to receive that.
Like, get this, a government-funded study on shrimp running on treadmills. Not a joke, you paid for that. Karoline Leavitt laid it out like a bad restaurant bill. We're not going to keep funding programs the current administration isn't even implementing, like DI seminars or Green New Deal leftovers. Why fund policies the president already rescinded? That's not compassion, that's insanity. To that point, Strahan was done.
There will be no more federal funding for DEI programs. There will be no more federal funding for the Green New Deal, which is an order from the previous administration that President Trump has rescinded. It would make no sense for American taxpayers to pay for policies that this administration is no longer implementing.
The man looked like he wanted the turf to swallow him whole. But wait, it gets better. He tried one last zinger. He brought up a temporary glitch in the Medicaid portal, thinking this was his knockout punch.
Well, the Medicaid system was disrupted across the country yesterday. Online portals, they went down in response to this freeze action. So should that not have happened? And is that a sign of a chaotic rollout?
The portal was fixed in minutes. Leavitt addressed it head-on. No dodging, no excuses. The system was up, running, and running better. The whole question made Strahan look uninformed, desperate, and sloppy.
No, absolutely not. And I would like to address that. We were made aware of that immediately, and we amended the problem immediately. The Medicaid program is back up and running online.
And as she calmly explained how spreading misinformation only fuels panic, Strahan sat there with an awkward smile, nodding like a confused freshman who didn't do the reading. And then, because he hadn't learned, he tried one more round. He pulled out the Kennedy card. He quoted Caroline Kennedy trashing RFK Jr., calling him dangerous and misinformed.
And Robert F. Kennedy Jr., let's go to another topic. We have a lot to cover here. President Trump's nominee for Secretary of Health and Human Services has his confirmation hearing this morning. Well, his cousin, Caroline Kennedy, she's speaking out against him, calling him, quote, unqualified with dangerous and willfully misinformed views on vaccines, and that he is a predator. And what's your response to that?
Karoline Leavitt's response. Mic drop. She didn't just defend Robert F. Kennedy Jr. She laid out his entire record. Decades of work in public health, environmental justice, transparency, legal wins, research. A history of holding powerful institutions accountable.
I would reject those comments fiercely. RFK Jr. is widely respected. He's a great man who has dedicated his life to public service and to research. He is pro-science, and he is committed to making this country healthy again.
She said what millions of Americans feel. This is the richest nation in the world and yet one of the unhealthiest. If someone wants to ask hard questions about that, maybe we should listen. And dismissing him as dangerous, just because he challenges broken systems. That's not journalism. That's cowardice.
He campaigned alongside President Trump, and they spoke that motto to tens of millions of Americans across the country who clearly believed in it. America is one of the richest yet unhealthiest countries in the world.
By now, Strahan had nothing left. He came in looking for a viral gotcha moment. Instead, he got a masterclass in composure, facts, and confidence.
If you look at our obesity rates, our autism rates, we should be performing far better. Our people should be much healthier. And that's all that RFK Jr. is trying to do. And so President Trump stands strongly behind him, and we look forward to watching him shine on Capitol Hill today in his confirmation hearing, just like all of the other nominees that President Trump has appointed to their respective agencies and departments.
And the internet. Oh, they noticed. The real takeaway. The media elite hate people like Karoline Leavitt not because she's wrong, but because she doesn't back down. She flips the table, makes you explain your nonsense, and turns gotcha questions into teaching moments. That's why President Trump picked her. That's why the base loves her. And that's why she keeps winning. Because truth, clarity, and backbone beat smug media theatrics every single time. So yeah, Michael Strahan may have been a legend on the football field, but in political discourse, Karoline Leavitt just sacked him for a 30-yard loss. If you made it this far, hit that like button, subscribe, and tell me in the comments. Was this the best media smackdown of the year? Or have you seen someone top it?